Hello everybody. This is the follow-up video. I wouldn't call it a part two because it's not one topic or theme split in two, but it's a follow-up on a similar theme. I've got some notes in front of me here, and I hope that you'll be patient with me as I flick through them. The first thing I want to say is that Suidlanders does not now and has never pretended to be a financial advisory service. However, we can tell the difference between black and white. So what we're going to discuss today is common sense, and it is information that's in the public domain. Do with it what you will. In the previous video, we spoke about this being the beginning of a true collapse in South Africa. Now I'm going to speak to you about severe concerns in the world right now about a global financial crisis. And let me be clear about one thing. The people who are discussing this, the highly intelligent, highly skilled, highly experienced gurus who are talking about this on YouTube, for example, are not talking about a crisis. They're not even talking about a catastrophe. They're talking about a cataclysm. They're saying that we are headed for an event, how did one guy put it? At least 100 times worse than the 2008 crisis. And he was being literally serious. The total collapse of the entire world financial system. Now, let me tell you why people are talking like that. I'm going to give you some random examples. I'll flick backwards and forwards through these notes, and hopefully by the end, the picture will make sense. In the past week, Donald Trump met with the heads of the Congress. For those of you who don't know, the United States Congress means the Senate. There are 100 senators, 2 from each state. The Senate and the House of Representatives. And some states which are very small and have low populations just have 1 or 2 representatives, and some states which are big and have large populations, Texas and Florida and California, have 30, 40, 50. The 2 together are known as the Congress, but they're 2 separate entities. Donald Trump met with the senior leaders of the Congress to warn them of a financial crisis between now and next year's US elections. I'm not certain, but I believe that they will be held in early November next year. You must know that when the president calls the politicians together, the senior dudes, which he doesn't have to do. The United States presidency is very different to our parliamentary system. The president is almost a thing apart. He doesn't ring them up to ask for their approval every time he wants to do something. When the president calls in the leaders of the Congress and says there's going to be a financial crisis before November, before next year's elections, you must know, ladies and gentlemen, that it's very serious. There are now $15 trillion of bonds in the world with a negative yield. And I watched one observer make a case on YouTube the other day, make a case that in fact it's not this 15 trillion that everybody talks about. It is 27 trillion. Now, a negative yield means that you pay for the privilege of loaning somebody money. And let me put it to you this way. let's say, firstly, the way that governments raise money is by issuing bonds. So they'll say, we've got 100 bonds, 100 pieces of paper here. Who wants one? And it can be a 2-year bond, a 10-year bond, a 30-year bond. There are bonds in the world of 100 years. You buy a bond for, let's say, $100, and the government pays you out a yield because you've loaned money to the government. When the government says, we're not going to pay you anything for the privilege of loaning your money, and people still buy them, it means that serious investors are so worried about the future that they're willing to pay for the privilege of loaning the government money because they don't believe that their money is safe anywhere else. Recent figures released in the USA reveal almost a 50% drop in the amount of packages, the number of packages being sent by UPS, FedEx, and DHL. That is a sure indicator of a very big problem in the economy. In Germany and Denmark, you can now get a home loan, a mortgage, at a negative interest rate. In other words, you go to the bank and you say, I want to buy a house, it's $100,000. I need $100,000. Will you lend it to me? They will give it to you at negative interest rates. In other words, over 25 years or 20 years, you pay back less than you borrowed. You pay back $95,000. The global economy is in such crisis that banks are willing to pay people to borrow money from them. Of course, it's unsustainable and it doesn't make any sense, but that's how bad it is. People are openly practicing financial behavior that makes no sense. Last week, the governor of the Bank of England said that it's now time to consider doing away with the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. The point is that it's going to do untold damage to the US dollar. That the governor of the Bank of England would say in public, let's not use the dollar anymore, is a massive thing. Also last week, China lifted its ban, its historical ban, on private citizens importing and trading in gold. Overnight, 1.5 billion people were added to the world gold market. The head of the world's largest hedge fund, Ray Dalio, said 2 or 3 weeks ago, he gave advice in an interview that people should buy gold. The implication of this, if it's not clear to you, is that money is not worth anything. There's going to be a big crisis. If you want good advice, buy gold because the paper is going to be worth zat, as my dad would say. In the previous week, the largest silver purchase in the history of the world was made, and nobody knows who made it. There is almost certainly going to be a recession in the USA, quite aside from this financial crisis. That's a particular event. There is almost certainly going to be a recession in the USA soon. And finally, on top of everything else, as if that wasn't enough, there is a looming pension crisis in the USA. If any of you are interested in this sort of thing and you'd like to learn more, please go to YouTube, look up Chris Masterson, Kitco, Kitco, Peter Schiff, Max Kaiser of the Kaiser Report, Mike Maloney, Gerald Celente. Look it up for yourself. All of these incredible gurus, including, as I said to you, the head of the world's largest hedge fund, Ray Dalio is his name, are saying the pawpaw is about to hit the fan. Our government will run out of money. It will not be able to keep the electricity on. If the electricity goes off, you won't be able to get clean running water. The sewerage system will not work. It will be difficult to pump diesel fuel, if it's even affordable, into trucks to take food from the farms to the markets. So there will be a shortage of food. Disease will be widespread. The consequences are too terrible to contemplate. We don't speak as financial gurus. We speak as people who are observing what the most highly qualified people in the world are warning in explicit terms. From that, we can put two and two together. We don't know when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, who's going to cause it to happen. We don't even know what exactly is going to happen. Is it going to be a collapse in the currency markets? Is it going to be a collapse in the bond markets? Is it going to be a collapse, as in 2008, in the mortgage markets? Who, what, why, when, where, how? We don't know. What we do know is that there are very, very, very worrying warning signs in the world today. And we urge you, ladies and gentlemen, please, for your sakes, endeavor to prepare to weather a crisis, and think very carefully about what you can do to contribute to a national emergency plan. There is one national emergency plan of this type, that is already erected. Please, ladies and gentlemen, prepare to get involved in a time of crisis, which looks as if it may not be far off now. I wish you a good day, and may God bless you.